The core issue driving the current political debate in Canada is a fundamental question of control. Who gets the final say over our nation's healthcare policies during a crisis? While international bodies frame new agreements as essential global cooperation, critics argue these structures systematically shift authority away from local, elected representatives to unelected global entities. Let's look at the actual blueprint of the WHO Pandemic Agreement. In May 2025, member states at the World Health Organization officially adopted the framework for the first-ever global pandemic agreement. Under parallel international health regulations amendments, the WHO Director General retains the exclusive power to unilaterally declare a public health emergency of international concern. The framework also integrates a One Health mandate, which legally expands the definitions of potential emergencies to include not just human pathogens, but environmental, agricultural, and climate-related factors, broadening the scope for global intervention. This sets up a direct conflict: legally binding versus sovereign law. Defenders of these international frameworks point to clauses stating that the WHO cannot directly force a country to implement localized lockdowns or vaccine mandates. However, legal and political analysts argue this misses the true nature of globalist governance. Once a nation binds itself to a ratified international treaty, it creates immense diplomatic, legal, and financial pressures to comply with global protocols. Even if the WHO cannot deploy forces to enforce a mandate, the framework is designed to make national deviations economically and politically punishing, effectively standardizing health responses globally. A major flashpoint for the public is how these commitments are being bypass-engineered into domestic law. In Canada, the execution of these international alignments has frequently bypassed robust parliamentary scrutiny, leveraging executive powers instead. One of the most centralized aspects of the agreement is the corporate governmental data pipeline, known as the Pathogen Access and Benefit Sharing System, which mandates the sharing of national biological data. Member states are legally required to rapidly upload genetic sequence data of any domestic pathogen with pandemic potential to a centralized, WHO-managed global database. In exchange, the framework grants the WHO administrative management over a percentage of the global production of countermeasures, acting as a centralized distribution authority. The most direct evidence of how international declarations dictate domestic actions is found in Canada's recent procurement frameworks. The contract finalized in March 2026 by Health Minister Marjorie Michel with global biotech giant CSL Seqirus serves as an operational blueprint for how globalist governance functions in real life. This procurement structure does not wait for a vote in the Canadian Parliament. It is engineered to deploy automatically based on an external trigger. First, the WHO Director General declares an influenza pandemic. Next, the contractual trigger mechanism activates automatically. Then, the CSL Seqirus facility in Australia pivots to mass production. Finally, 15 million cell-based doses are immediately dispatched to Canada. Looking closer at the technical specifications, the production is completely outsourced to CSL Seqirus's brand new, digitally enabled facility in Tullamarine, Melbourne, Australia. This marks the first international pandemic manufacturing contract secured by this foreign site. The agreement officially transitions Canada away from legacy egg-based vaccine manufacturing to advanced cell-based, adjuvanted technology. Cell-based systems allow the facility to rapidly scale up to produce over 150 million doses in its first wave of emergency production. The inclusion of adjuvants, which are immune-stimulating boosters, allows for a smaller amount of virus antigen per dose, maximizing rapid mass deployment. This continuous push toward global integration has not occurred without distinct domestic friction. Opposition MPs and grassroots citizen campaigns have actively spoken out against this rapid alignment with international frameworks. Conservative members of parliament, led visibly by figures like Dr. Leslyn Lewis, have repeatedly warned that the parallel international health regulations amendments threaten to hand over immense, unaccountable influence to an external authority. They argue that labeling these deep commitments as agreements rather than formal treaties is a deliberate strategy to circumvent the high threshold of parliamentary scrutiny and debate normally required for international law. Simultaneously, tens of thousands of citizens have forced this debate onto the floor through official parliamentary actions, such as Petition E4401. These petitions explicitly condemn the government for bypassing the House of Commons, demanding an immediate freeze on any global health compliance frameworks until they are put to a transparent democratic vote. While the administration claims Canada retains ultimate domestic sovereignty, critics counter that automated, multi-million-dollar contracts tied directly to a Geneva-based trigger tell a completely different story. Underlying this entire shift toward automated global health frameworks is a fundamental principle that must be upheld: the right to true informed consent. Critics emphasize that a key part of maintaining health freedom is the absolute necessity for individuals to demand, read, and thoroughly review the official product insert before accepting any medication, therapeutic, or inoculation. Every medical intervention comes with a specific profile of ingredients, warnings, and potential adverse effects. For cell-based, adjuvanted vaccines, reading the insert allows citizens to verify the exact chemical composition of the product, including the specific oil and water emulsion boosters, like MF59, used to stimulate the body's immune response. True informed consent cannot exist in an environment of automated deployment and high-pressure public messaging. It requires full transparency, individual education, and an uncompromised right to review the manufacturer's documentation. Citizens are urged to exercise their legal right to a complete risk-benefit analysis, ensuring that individual choice and grassroots oversight remain intact, even when global institutions attempt to streamline the process from above. The integration of these parallel tracks reveals the true nature of modern global governance and the resulting democratic deficit. The trigger that activates a multi-million-dollar domestic deployment, vaccine delivery, and subsequent public pressure campaign sits entirely in Geneva. By utilizing executive agreements, memorandums of understanding, and automated procurement triggers, the administration locks the nation into international compliance networks without a single vote, debate, or discussion on the floor of the House of Commons. This is the Canadian Citizens Journal.